Morning, all. All right, so in my look at the NHL's history, we're up to the 1992-1993 season. The league rose to 24 teams that season. The Ottawa Senators added to the Adams Division. Tampa Bay added to the Norris Division. Not optimal being in the Norris Division since that's West, but at any rate, Tampa Bay's in the National Hockey League. So the Adams Division is won by the Boston Bruins, who finished with 109 points, which is second overall in the NHL. 51, 26, and 7 record for them under coach Brian Sutter, 332 goals scored, 268 goals against. They finished 5 points ahead of the Quebec Nordiques. The trade of Eric Lindros really helps the Quebec Nordiques that first year. Eventually, it would help Philadelphia, but at this point, it is Quebec that looks like they win the trade. We'll talk about the trade. 47, 27, and 10 record for the Nordiques, 351 goals scored, 300 goals against. Pierre Pagé being their coach. The Montreal Canadiens right there too, 48, 30, and 6 record for 102 points, 326 goals scored, 280 goals against. They're now coached by Jacques Demers. The Buffalo Sabres finished 38, 36, and 10, 86 points for them, 335 goals scored, 297 goals against. John Muckler is their coach. The Hartford Whalers missed the playoffs by a lot, 58 points. Under coach Paul Holmgren, a record of 26, 52, and 6, 284 goals scored, 369 goals against. The Ottawa Senators, they have themselves quite the season. And no, I don't mean that in a positive way. 10 wins to go with 70 losses and 4 ties. 24 points, 202 goals scored, 395 goals against. But they did win their home opener, so there's that. The Patrick Division's won by Pittsburgh, who finished 56, 21, and 7, 119 points, 367 goals scored, 268 goals against, under coach Scotty Bowman. The Washington Capitals finished with 93 points, a record of 43, 34, and 7, 325 goals scored, 286 goals against, under coach Terry Murray. The New York Islanders, under coach Al Arbour, finished 40, 37, and 7, so 87 points for them. 335 goals scored, 297 goals against. The New Jersey Devils have the exact same record. Just lose the tiebreaker against the Islanders. So 87 points for them as well under coach Herb Brooks. 308 goals scored, 299 goals against. The Philadelphia Flyers missed the playoffs with 83 points, a record of 36, 37, and 11 under coach Bill Dineen. 319 goals scored, 319 goals against for the Philadelphia Flyers. The New York Rangers finished 34, 39, and 11 for 79 points, 304 goals scored, 308 goals against. Under Roger Nielsen, they go 19, 17, and 4. Under Ron Smith, they go 15, 22, and 1. So we go out west. The Chicago Blackhawks, another strong season for them. 106 points, 47, 25, and 12 is their record under coach Daryl Sutter. 279 goals scored, 230 goals against. The Detroit Red Wings finished 47, 28, and 9, 103 points under coach Brian Murray. 369 goals scored, 280 goals against for them. The Toronto Maple Leafs finished third. A strong record, 99 points for them. Record of 44, 29, and 11. 288 goals scored, 241 goals against under coach Pat Burns. So Burns goes from Montreal to Toronto and shows he's an excellent coach in both locations. St. Louis 37, 36, and 11 record for 85 points. 282 goals scored, 278 goals against. They go 4, 6, and 1 under Bob Plager. Bob Berry coaches them to a record of 33, 30, and 10 that season. The Minnesota North Stars finished 36, 38, and 10, so 82 points for them. Bob Gainey's the coach. 272 goals scored, 293 goals against. And the Tampa Bay Lightning didn't have a great season, but they more than doubled the points by the Ottawa Senators. When they were doing the expansion draft, Ottawa went with a more young roster, less experienced. Tampa Bay went with veterans. Worked out well for them. They finished 23, 54, and 7, so 53 points that season. 245 goals scored, 332 goals against under coach Terry Crisp. The Smythe Division's won by Vancouver again. So back-to-back seasons, record of 46, 29, and 11, 101 points under coach Pat Quinn. 346 goals scored, 278 goals against. The Calgary Flames, 97-point season for them under coach Dave King. Record of 43, 30, and 11. 322 goals scored, 282 goals against for Calgary. The LA Kings under coach Barry Melrose finished with 88 points, a record of 39, 35, and 10. 338 goals scored, 340 goals against. The Winnipeg Jets make the playoffs with an 87-point season, record of 40, 30, and 7 under coach John Paddock. So you have Winnipeg, the Islanders, and New Jersey all with the exact same record that year. 322 goals scored, 320 goals against for Winnipeg. The Edmonton Oilers finished with a record of 26, 50, and 8 under coach Ted Green. 60 points for them, 242 goals scored, 337 goals against. The San Jose Sharks finish 11, 71, and 2, 24 points. So that strong first season, completely forgotten with that second season being so awful. 218 goals scored, 414 goals against under coach George Kingston. I believe that was the second and final season behind the bench. So this is the last season of divisional playoffs. If you're waiting for 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 kind of playoffs, they show up in 93, 94. This is also the North Stars' final season before the move to Dallas. And it was a tough season for Minnesota fans because the building's over half empty. You know the team's being moved as part of the reason the building's over half empty. And so the relationship between the team and the fans has never been like this, and it's not for the better. So the move from Minnesota to Dallas is coming, which of course means the Minnesota Wild are coming soon as well. February 1st of 1993, Gary Bettman is named the NHL's first commissioner. After being run by Gil Stein for a year, it's obvious that that's not going to work out. And so Gary Bettman taking over as commissioner, he comes over from the NBA and takes on an NBA-styled playoff system pretty quickly after he takes over. So the NHL also expands that season to 84 games. You may have noticed that when I was going over the schedules, and included are 2 neutral site games per team. And I've even tracked where all the neutral site games were played that season, because it's kind of fun to look and see where they've played and which ones were assigned that they were going to expand into those locations. There's coincidental penalties leading to 4-on-4 again. So now that Edmonton's bad, they go back to coincidental penalties leading to 4-on-4. During the height of the Oilers dynasty, it was made 5-on-5 if it's coincidental penalties, because 4-on-4, the Oilers were lethal, and you just can't have that. The diving penalty is introduced that season as well. Up until then, embellishment was getting pretty bad. It was getting pretty bad. A back injury keeps Gretzky out for 39 games, so he doesn't finish in the top 10 scoring for the first time in his career. Mario Lemieux misses 24 games with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he had back spasms in the playoffs as well. So Mario Lemieux missed a lot of time during his career, and his career was a lot shorter than it should have been. It's just sad to think about how many points and goals we would have seen that his body just wasn't providing for him. June 30th of 1992. After sitting out an entire season, Eric Lindros is finally traded. He's traded twice. So on June 30th, the trade is finalized to the Flyers. So there were trades to the Flyers and to the Rangers. The trade to the Flyers is the one that's seen as having been made first. And going the other way, Peter Forsberg, Ron Hextall, Mike Ricci, Steve Duchesne, Kerry Huffman, a 1993 first-round draft pick, and cash. So Quebec made out pretty well on that. And that's how you end up with the Quebec Nordiques all of a sudden being second in the division, because they get a goalie, they get a top defenseman, and they get forwards, and you name it, they get it for Lindros in that trade. August 7th of 1992, the Chicago Blackhawks trade Dominic Hasek for Stefan Beauregard and a 1993 fourth-round draft pick from Buffalo. And it is a trade that aged poorly right away. But at the same time, you could kind of understand the Hawks trading Hasek because they didn't have room for Hasek. They had Belfour. And so Hasek was kind of an expendable on their end. It is a big oops. Absolutely is a big oops. And of course, Hasek has a pretty strong career in Buffalo. August 27th of 1992, Montreal trades Shane Corson and Brent Gilchrist to the Oilers for Vinny Domfus. So Vinny Domfus goes to Montreal, has a pretty good playoff that year. Teemu Selanne sets himself some records, 76 goals as a rookie, and he also had 132 points, which is a rookie record that season too. So Teemu Selanne set the bar pretty high that first year. He wouldn't get back to 76 goals in a season, but it happened. And there were multiple players who had fantastic years scoring-wise. Once we get over to the scoring side, you guys will see what I'm talking about. everybody had a pretty good offensive season in 92-93. This is where you can have the discussion on expansion kind of causing offense to go up a bit. In the case of Ottawa, Tampa Bay, and San Jose, they're definitely causing some score sheets to get a little bit, shall we say, one-sided, because Ottawa and San Jose are losing games by a lot at this point in time. Montreal sets a record in the playoffs that year of 10 overtime wins. 10. Patrick Roy, if it was an overtime, Montreal wins. And that was the storyline throughout those playoffs. Oh, they're going overtime, so Montreal wins. Cool, I don't have to stay up and watch this. October 17th of 1992, LA Kings, Yari Curry, so Curry's gone to the Kings at this point, scores his 500th goal, which is a first for a European-born and trained player. So all the best to Curry on that record. May the 7th of 1993, Gretzky is the first player to reach 100 playoff goals in his career. So Gretzky setting records in the regular season and the playoffs. The Penguins win 17 in a row, which sets an NHL record. The 14th win was the record setter, and they get to 17. So strong record for Pittsburgh. I don't know if that's ever equaled. It's been close, but I don't know if it ever gets equaled or passed. The Art Ross Trophy, Mario Lemieux of Pittsburgh wins that. He also wins the Masterton Trophy, coming back from Hodgkin's lymphoma. And coming back from it and still looking really good. Still looking like Mario Lemieux. It's not like he was out there and, well, it's going to take him a while. No, he was fine. At least he looked fine on the ice. We know he's dealing with back spasms and everything like that. The Calder Trophy goes to Teemu Selanne of Winnipeg. The Conn Smythe goes to Patrick Roy of Montreal. Patrick Roy got himself some Conn Smythes in his career. The Selke Trophy goes to Doug Gilmour of Toronto. The Hart Trophy goes to Mario Lemieux of Pittsburgh. The Jack Adams goes to Pat Burns in Toronto. The Norris Trophy goes to Chris Chelios of the Chicago Blackhawks. The King Clancy goes to Dave Poulin of the Boston Bruins. The Lady Byng goes to Pierre Turgeon of the New York Islanders. The Lester Pearson goes to Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Vezina goes to Ed Belfour of Chicago, and he is also the lone winner of the Jennings, as no other goaltender played enough games to qualify for that trophy. So Belfour having himself another very strong season. The League All-Stars, at center, Mario Lemieux's the first-team All-Star, of course, from Pittsburgh. Pat LaFontaine of Buffalo is the second-team All-Star. On the left side, Luc Robitaille of LA is the first-team All-Star. Kevin Stevens in Pittsburgh is second-team. On the right side, Teemu Selanne for Winnipeg is first-team All-Star. Alexander McGillney of Buffalo is the second-team All-Star. On the blue line, Chris Chelios of Chicago and Ray Bourque of Boston are your first-team All-Stars. Larry Murphy in Pittsburgh and Al Iafrate in Washington are your second-team All-Stars. Washington had some defensemen that could score that season. In net, Ed Belfour of Chicago was the first-team All-Star, and Tom Barrasso of the Pittsburgh Penguins is second-team All-Star. So the neutral sites that played host to NHL games that season: Saskatoon, Hamilton, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Phoenix, Miami, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Sacramento, Atlanta, Peoria, Cincinnati, Halifax, Cleveland, and Providence. So all of those locations had regular season games that year, and some sites had more than others. And you can see that, yes, it did kind of tell you where the NHL was looking at expanding to. And I've talked about, the NHL could probably do this again now. It feels like there's more locations that could host NHL games and do it well. So I wouldn't mind seeing an NHL schedule at some point where there might be a neutral site game. Maybe every team plays one during a season, that kind of thing, right? But anyways, moving on. Mario Lemieux's the top scorer, plays 60 games that season, 69 goals, 91 assists, 160 points. Pat LaFontaine plays all 84 games that season, 53 goals, 95 assists, 148 points. LaFontaine was ridiculous. Adam Oates in Boston, absolutely ridiculous as well. Plays all 84 games, 45 goals, 97 assists, 142 points. And this is the year where, with Oates getting 45 goals, it shows that with the injury issues Cam Neely goes through, if Neely's not in the lineup, Adam Oates is perfectly fine shooting the puck himself. He had a much better shot than he had credit for because he didn't generally take the shot. He was always looking for the pass. Steve Yzerman in Detroit, 84 games for him as well, 58 goals, 79 assists, 137 points. Teemu Selanne in Winnipeg, 84 games, 76 goals, 56 assists, 132 points. Pierre Turgeon with the Islanders, 83 games, 58 goals, 74 assists, 132 points. Doug Gilmour in Toronto, 83 games played, 32 goals, 95 assists for 127 points. Alex McGillney of Buffalo, 77 games, 76 goals, 51 assists, 127 points. Just ridiculous. Luc Robitaille in LA, 84 games, 63 goals, 62 assists, 125 points. And Mark Recchi rounds out the top 10 with a ridiculous total. 84 games, 53 goals, 70 assists, 123 points. 21 players reached 100 points in 92-93. That's insane. In net, Tom Barrasso leads the way from a wins perspective, record of 43-14-5, 901 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Ed Belfour, 41-18-11 record, 906 save percentage, 7 shutouts. Andy Moog in Boston, 37-14-3 record, 876 save percentage, 3 shutouts. Tim Cheveldae in Detroit, 34-24-7 record, 889 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Bob Essenza in Winnipeg, 33-26-5 record, 893 save percentage, 2 shutouts. And Patrick Waugh in Montreal, 31-25-5 record, 894 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. So, goaltenders had their struggles that season. So we get to the playoffs, and it's still best 4 out of 7 in its divisional playoffs just for this one last season. LA beats Calgary 4-2. Vancouver beats Winnipeg 4-2. Toronto beats Detroit 4-3. So Toronto, bit of an underdog here. They knock out Detroit in the first round. St. Louis beats Chicago 4-0. So Chicago gets swept, even though they were the number 1 team in the West that season. The Islanders beat Washington 4-2. Pittsburgh beats New Jersey 4-1. Montreal beats Quebec 4-2. And Buffalo, with an upset over Boston, they sweep them 4 games straight. And so we don't have Boston-Montreal that season. So division finals, all of the third place teams win. Montreal, Islanders, Toronto, and LA. Starting with LA beating Vancouver 4-2. That was a tough one because, again, Vancouver the top team, and both years they were the top team. They were out in the first round. Toronto beat St. Louis in 7 games. So Toronto gets all the way to the conference final. The Islanders beat Pittsburgh. It takes 7 games there as well, and going into Game 7. I think it was Kevin Stevens that said, yeah, great teams win Game 7s, and we're the great team. And thinking to myself at the time, why would you say that before the game? Like, I understand trying to be confident, but why? You just gave them all something to rally around, and then the Islanders win Game 7. Montreal beats Buffalo 4 straight games. So Buffalo sweeps Boston, and then they get swept in the next round. In the conference final, it's LA and Toronto. There's some controversy in the LA-Toronto series. Believe it was Kerry Fraser that became public enemy number 1 for LA fans during that series. But anyways, or for Toronto fans during that series. Toronto wins the first game 4-1. LA beats Toronto 3-2. Then LA beats Toronto 4-2 at home before Toronto ties the series with a 4-2 win. And at this stage, we know it's going to be Montreal in the final. Can Toronto meet Montreal in a really, really strong throwback to maybe the greatest rivalry in hockey history between Toronto and Montreal? Can we see that? Well, Toronto wins by a score of 3-2 in overtime to go up 3-2. Could not close it out. LA wins at home in overtime 5-4, and then LA beats Toronto 5-4 to win the series 4-3, a series which Toronto fans did not agree with the outcome of. Montreal beats the Islanders 4-1 on their side of things, and then they win 4-3 in double overtime in the second game, because every overtime game, Patrick Waugh has to win those. And then Montreal wins in overtime in New York to go up 2-1 with a 2-1 win. Before that, 3-0, I should say. The Islanders get their win in Game 4 at home, 4-1, and then Montreal wins at home 5-2 to win the series 4-1. So in the Stanley Cup Final, it's the LA Kings, it's the Montreal Canadiens, and I started what I thought was going to be a tradition where I would record the final game of the season in the NHL. So I recorded the final game of the season in the NHL this year, and then 94, I tried, but it was like, nope. 94, we'll get to 94 tomorrow, and just, yeah, I didn't record Game 7, or if I started, I think I started, and then I didn't finish recording Game 7. Anyways, In that Stanley Cup final, Wayne Gretzky has 2 goals and 5 assists. That's the only Stanley Cup final appearance for Gretzky where he wasn't a member of the Edmonton Oilers. Luc Robitaille, 3 goals, 2 assists. Tony Granato, a goal and 3 assists. And Kelly Hrudey and a .915 save percentage in the final. On the Montreal side, Eric Desjardins had 3 goals and 1 assist. Kirk Muller, 2 goals, 2 assists. John LeClair, 2 goals, 2 assists. And Vinny Damphousse, a goal and 3 assists. Patrick Roy, .929 save percentage. That Montreal team was not a remarkable team. It wasn't a star-studded team, but it had Patrick Roy. And once you got to overtime, between Patrick Roy's goaltending and timely goals from guys like John LeClair, Montreal was unstoppable in overtime that year. And to this date, it is still the last Stanley Cup win by a team based in Canada. It is not the last Stanley Cup, though, for Canadian hockey players, of course. Canadian hockey players, very often the dominant nationality on teams that win the Stanley Cup. But we'll go through that some other time. And for now, we're done with the 92-93 season. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.